An action-oriented gaming franchise like Castlevania hosts many exciting and powerful characters, whether they're the protagonist or antagonist. The main trio centered around the plot for the Netflix series are not to be slept on, especially the resident witch of the trifecta is no exception, even when compared to her powerhouse companions. With any good delicacy, it's common for people to save the best for last. Therefore, having already covered Alucard and Trevor, it's time to break down the First Lady of Castlevania, Sypha Belnades. Let's get it. Yo. Like Trevor and Alucard, Sypha is another returning protagonist from Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse, unlike Grant, who seems to have been left out to dry. Although in the show we know the heroes as a trio who defeated Dracula, in the game that it was meant to mirror, were a party of 4 and the missing individual was Grant and Nasty, a crucial character who started out as a foe and became one of the protagonists. So the more I do these character breakdowns, the more I question Warren Ellis' creative incentive and direction for how he adopted the source material. Well anyway, her inspiration for the show follows the same blueprint for the others, being a mirror to how she was portrayed in a gaming series, adopting characteristics in her visuals, personality, origins, and overall abilities. Sypha also makes appearances or is referenced in the following titles, such as Symphony of the Night, Portrait of Ruin, Castlevania Judgment, Pachislat Akumajo, Dracula 3, and in the Lords of Shadow series as Trevor's wife and the mother of Simon. Of course, given that the show is not an exact one-to-one copy of what took place in Castlevania 3, there were twists that were implemented to differentiate her and the subsequent lore in the following titles. Personally, I found it surprising and at times intriguing how the writer's portrayal of Sypha was compared to the other main characters in the show. More importantly, the revisions on how certain situations took place and where they stem from. And so, let's look at the direct influences from the gaming series that were implemented in the animated show. Like in the games, Sypha's main abilities consisted of being a magic wielder who utilizes the elements of fire, ice, and lightning in combat. Her visual appearance is an exact carbon copy of being a blonde European woman, and as a wielder of the arcane, she is always in her iconic long blue robe with a light blue cloak on top. She also has adopted her nurturing and empathetic personality, being selfless in the service of protecting humanity from the creatures of the night. Like in the games, the show adapted the specific events of her being captured and petrified by a Cyclops, to later on be turned back to normal once Trevor killed the Cyclops in question, then on to adventure with Trevor and Alucard, defeating Dracula. Most importantly, falling in love, marrying, and building a family with Trevor, thus commencing the ever-growing magical prowess in the Belmont clan going forward. Now brace yourself, because I think many of you may be a bit astonished on the differences that took place for Sypha, particularly with the main point I'm going to mention now. The Speaker's Tribe, or a society, is strictly a machination of the animated series. Yeah, you heard correctly. There are no speakers in the games. Mainly because in the games, being labeled a witch is not simply an insult or an accusation by the church or normal citizens to those who practice science or magic. Rather, being a witch is an actual class that is normal, and Sypha comes from a sisterhood of sect practice. Not to mention that she is part of a clan, the Belnades clan, unlike being in a nomadic tribe like on the show. Her abilities, while similar and seem to be of the same practice, the difference comes into play by how she conjures the elements to aid her. In the show, Sypha comes from a long line of speaker magicians, which I presume would mean she just learned spells that allow her to control the natural arcane energies in the atmosphere. But in the games, Sypha's ability to use the elements comes from her manipulation of spirits or by making a pact with them in order to conjure powerful spells. And unlike the show, Sypha in the games is very much weak physically and has no hand-to-hand combative skill. So all that jumping, fighting, stamina, and speed she portrays in the show is not her thing in the games. Her origins are also pretty interesting. While a member of the speakers on the show, she is considered an enemy of God and of the church. But again, in the games, Sypha grew up as a monk and became a hunter in service of the church. Crazy, right? Yeah, I know. So now that we've gotten to know some of the differences compared to the source material, let's get down to analyzing Sypha from the Netflix show. As stated before, Sypha's introduction in the show is an adaptation of how her and Trevor met in Castlevania 3. And once restored to life after the death of the Cyclops, It only makes sense that she throws up because her organs just instantly change phases of matter, from being turned into a complete solid and back to her protoplasm state. Even in such a state, she is formal and still in the task, even though Trevor dismisses her claim to find the sleeping soldier. Although both of them starting off on a wrong foot, Sypha always manages to take the high road, being the more mature in cases of difference in opinion. It's an indication of her speaker culture, to be the selfless, nurturing, and empathetic one in service of humanity, kind of like monks. It shows that the writer took the liberty to transfer her monk background from the games and implemented them into the speaker's culture in order to contrast that the church is sort of the evil entity in this interpretation of Castlevania. Warren even took the liberty to insert how Sypha's attire disguises her womanhood, in order to protect the female members of the clan when traveling.
I wish speakers wouldn't do that.
What?
Dress the girls like boys.
It's safer when we travel. What happened?
It's a direct reference to Sypha disguising herself as a man to move about without concern, due to a woman named Lisa that was executed for suspicion of witchcraft months prior. The same Lisa who happened to be the wife of Dracula, and whose death sparked the war on humanity. It's really interesting how that specific part of the lore was revised to fit the narrative of the show. Even going through what she has been through, and making it back to her troop alive, she is still determined that the legend is real, and that the booby traps are evidence that something important enough to protect down in the catacombs, which she inevitably is correct about. Sypha's role in the show seems to be the light in the darkness, and represents lingering hope that most characters have lost, specifically inspiring the light and hope in both of her companions through her kind words and nurturing personality while safeguarding their lives on a multitude of occasions. The inception of this came at her and the rest of the speakers' refusal to abandon the people of Gresham, despite their impending death that Trevor informs them of. She goes on to shield Trevor from the onslaught of the citizens with a wall of fire, allowing him the opportunity to voice the truth to the people, then being the voice of reason and compromise that ends a potential fatal scuffle between the sleeping soldier and the hunter, to fulfill the prophecy her grandfather was faithful to be truth. This role of hers continues into season 2 of the series, leaving the company of her tribe in order to join a new company of Trevor and Alucard. Like most children when they trek into unfamiliar experiences like college or moving out of the home, she is sad and feels alone with no sympathy from Trevor, but Alucard's empathetic personality makes up for it. She's always finding a way for the crew to move forward, whether finding a caravan to travel, having the ability to remove the Hearthstone, lighting the torches to the library, utilizing the mirror, or just simply growing ice to get out of the hold. As much as the story likes to highlight the last Belmont or the son of Dracula as key factors in the main mission, a culmination of how their collective families' advantages utilized by a speaker makes things play out for the best. So there's no denying that Sypha is the key to success. Let's be honest, Sypha compared to her game counterpart is a bit of a Mary Sue, but in a good way. I think she is portrayed this way in the show to not come off as a damsel, but more importantly to put her on equal footing with her OP and Gary Stu companions. At her age, she seems to display intelligence that is about 1/3 the amount contained by Dracula himself, thanks to speaker tradition of passing down hundreds of years of Wallachian knowledge. Not to mention it takes a sharp mind to practice the arcane arts, and a unique memory capacity to recite, recall, and use knowledge that would be kept in vast libraries by oral tradition, evidenced by referring to herself as a scholar of magic.
I am a speaker and a scholar of magic,
which makes her a specialist in the craft and how she knew the Adamic language, aka the first recorded spoken tongue of the human species. Her scholarship is in full display throughout the series, time and time again manipulating and utilizing the elements at will. Powerful magic that by simple touch can harm night creatures and put the king of vampires on high alert. Most impressive about Sypha's mind is her unique ability to use magic for range and melee combat. As stated earlier, her counterpart in the games did not have high physical stats in melee and defense, but on the show she seems way more capable and durable in those areas. The interesting thing about how she engages in melee offensive is mainly through using raw arcane energy itself. I don't think I've ever seen her use a man-made weapon, not even a staff like most traditional mages, which in contrast to mages like Isaac and Hector who channel their magic through enchanted weapons. Her manipulation of magic comes in the form of hand signs, almost as if she is using her chakra, ki, or spiritual energy to summon the natural elements in the atmosphere, using the pointing finger in combination with the middle finger to summon fire, pointing finger and pinky to summon ice, and all 5 fingers for electricity, at least when she means to focus. Yet, I never understood why she never used or summoned the element of wind. Did she not find it useful? Anyway, any other time she is able to summon these elements on the fly without hand signs at will, throwing a tower of ice hundreds of yards away with a flick, stopping massive amounts of flame energy from enemies, and even stop Dracula's meteor attack in place. By the way, is she able to run out of mana at all? Come season 3, the nurturing, selfless speaker has escalated to the point of being a bit obnoxious, but with reason. If you helped eliminate the biggest threat to the human race too, you'd be strutting around feeling yourself. Yet 2 things can be true at once. While she should feel encouraged and proud to have saved humanity from near extinction, it should not be an excuse to walk around like your shit don't stink, especially when it comes to her intimate relationship with Trevor. I thought it was really beautiful to see their relationship develop, starting from season 1 where both their attitudes repelled one another, but it gradually evolved into an admiration by the end. Then throughout season 2, how Sypha would annoyingly pick at Trevor to open up, and they, mutually warmed up to one another, proving that opposites attract. Coincidentally, you would think that she would go for someone like-minded like Alucard, who is handsome in a weirdly feminine way, has fashion sense, has resources and the means, and surprisingly emotionally intelligent, yet falls for someone who is distant, has a dark sense of humor, poor hygiene, and is an alcoholic. It's almost as if she enthusiastically recruits Trevor to be her new pet project, and to occasionally have sex with, of course. While she does have the right intentions to reform Trevor while adventuring together to safeguard Wallachia from the remaining night creatures, she is unconsciously using him for her own selfish agenda. Everyone could have went their own way after the death of Dracula, or she could have returned to her tribe, but used this opportunity instead to exercise her independence while convincing Trevor to travel with her on escapades as a form of codependency. He rarely has a say in anything, where they go, what they do, how they do it, and consistently projects her insecurities on him. Although Trevor's wit personality doesn't help her see her wrongs, it takes their failed mission as investigators of Lindenfeld to realize how she was out of pocket and wasn't without error in her ways. While her admiration for the judge and the excitement of Lindenfeld came over her, it overshadowed the dark secret they came upon at the end of the season, and her worldview of harmless humans she is sworn to serve and protect has flipped upside down.
This could not have gone more wrong. What happened?
Starting off exactly where things left off in season 4, an aura of hopelessness and mental exhaustion is upon them, especially in our girl Sypha. While in a way Trevor is thriving in its atmosphere, she is losing her grip and makes mistakes she usually would not during confrontations. Within a 6-week time span of non-stop battle from town to town and uncovering a scheme to return Dracula to life, for a speaker who is very mindful of her words, she is now cursing and throwing random tantrums.
Shit! I said shit, okay? Shit! Fucking talking! Who says shit? Fucking shit! Hairy arse, warts, giant slimy balls! Shit!
No!
But of course blames it on the only outlet she has, Trevor. Little does she know this is a side effect of her being late. And as a dad now, this was so recognizable to see how her mood swings dictate her actions moving forward, going from 0 to 100, mellow, depressed, impulsive, or just plain content randomly. Making their way to Targovishta exhausted and on the brink of death, they come upon Zamfir. After seeing the pitiful state of the city in the AM, and after a stern talking to from Trevor about revising their way to operate, her passion as a speaker to help those in need and restore hope to the hopelessness with a sound mind and plan is rekindled. She finds herself mothering the situation and starts to renew the citizens and Zamfir's sense of community by avoiding disease and starvation. Although Zamfir is moments away from being strangled, both play along as she reveals the truth of the underground court and the royal family in the catacombs. And even though she could have continued to chastise Zamfir, she chooses, as a speaker would, to assist her in recovering her mind state, and before she could rehabilitate her, Rocco and Varney attack. In the midst of defending herself against the night creatures, they hear Varney speak of his plan to return Dracula to life. And we all know what happens after this. They follow Varney through the transfer mirror, rejoin Alucard, do what they do best until she is forced to watch the man she fell in love with sacrifice himself for the greater good. More importantly, this is when she found out she was with child, and for 2 weeks she had to marinate in silence, reflecting on the fact that the father of her child is forever gone. Alucard tries to console her as she is insistent on going, but along with Greta, convinces her to join the new community. The minute she finds the resolve to organize, she sends Alucard's attention to an untied horse, and by sheer fate this is the same horse that delivered Greta's message, and the person on it is her happiness, Trevor. When Greta checks on her, we get these words from her to finalize the series, for the protagonist at least.
I think we finally won.
Sypha Belnades, the optimist, the light in the shadow, and the speaker of hope, veering off the path of her foundation and preserving through trials and tribulations that open her eyes to truths that her bubble could not protect her from. Her journey is one of who believes they have acquired all the answers, but throughout life, one must learn that answers come in variations, more than just word of mouth. Leaving her comfort zone, allow her to grow immensely in mind by understanding the need to document, in body, by traveling and given the opportunity to put her scholarly studies to practice, finally in spirit, establishing new relationships aside from her family and building a better community to safeguard the future. Thank you for tuning into the Sypha analysis. I finally got to do the big three of the show. It feels so good to get it done, and I'm always thankful to those who enjoy my perspective. She's definitely my second favorite character after Isaac. There's just something really enjoyable about a well-written and fleshed out female character who is not a damsel and is just vulnerable. Let me know in the comments how you all feel about Sypha. Most importantly, let me know how you felt about this breakdown and whatever you would like to add that stood out to you about her. Leave a like for your boy if you enjoyed this content, and a super thanks if you're feeling extra generous during the season of giving. Subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell to stay up to date on future content dropping on the channel. I look forward to seeing you all for the final analysis that is coming soon. And if you have the time, don't hesitate to check out other unique content on the channel if you're into other genres and popular series like Star Wars, Berserk, and etc. As always, you know the vibes. It's Kaizoku Sleven. Appreciate you.